Kia ora, and welcome to our cafe session, specifically all about Gifted 101 and starting you off on your journey in our learning program, Gifted 101. If you haven't registered yet, make sure you do via our website, which is neurodiversity.org.nz/BNS, standing for Building a Neuro-Inclusive School. And there's a wee button there to register for Gifted 101. So welcome. We're going to talk through the first module of Gifted 101 in this session. And just as an introduction or a starting point for you, a karakia as we begin, tū taua mai I runga, tū taua mai I raro, tū taua mai I roto, tū taua mai I waho. Kia tau ai, te mauri tū, te mauri ora. Ki te katoa, homie hui tai kie. Welcome. That's a lovely karakia as it brings us all together from all of the different places we might be to bring us together to be strong in our mauri, our spirits together. So, question for you, if you've already started Gifted 101, how are you finding it? I hope it's ticking the boxes for you in terms of being that really lovely balance of fun and also practical. It's designed for busy teachers. It's designed by busy teachers. And it features a range of different voices, including from our gifted young people and our gifted and otherwise neurodivergent teens as well, giving you not just the teachers' experiences, but the experiences of our learners so far. Okay. Module 1 is all about these three really simple ideas, but they set the scene for everything else. And what we're talking about in this module is what gifted means, what it means in the context of neurodiversity, importantly, what gifted does not mean, because, oh my goodness, if there was ever a word full of baggage, gifted is the word. So let's look at a little bit about what gifted is not. And also, let's look at gifted in its context of neurodiversity, what giftedness sometimes comes hand in hand with, and what that means for you as a teacher. Okay, let's dig into just some of these key ideas that you're going to come across in Gifted 101. Really importantly, in Gifted 101, at each step of the way, you're going to get things that you can try out and do with real life learners in your real life classroom, wherever your classroom is, whatever context you have. The ideas and things for you to try out should be able to slot into your particular context. That's really important to us, that you are trying things out as you go, even if it's just conversations, chatting with the learner, figuring out more about them, asking them about their experience of the world. So, this first section, what Gifted is all about. Three key ideas here. Giftedness is a brain-based difference. The brains of our gifted learners are demonstrably different from non-gifted brains. This is something that's been theorized by researchers and psychologists and wise people of all descriptions all across time. They have thought that these brains must be somehow different. And what's great about living in 2024, not in 1924, is that our neuroscience techniques, our imaging techniques are catching up with our thinking. And they are showing that these brains are different. These brains are differently connected. They have more connections. They come to life. They spark off more fully, more completely than other brains. And they also activate more quickly than other brains. So those differences are demonstrable in the brain. Right throughout Gifted 101, if you want to read more into some really selected readings around the key ideas, jump into the conclusion section, and there are links to things to read more about these key ideas. We've shared in those links a link to some of the emerging neuroscience around those gifted brains. So anyway, giftedness is a form of neurodiversity. It's a demonstrable brain-based difference. Now, what does that difference look like in a real-life human, not just in some kind of fancy neuroscience imaging world? Gifted is characterized by having high intellectual abilities. And by abilities, we don't mean good at maths, good at reading. We mean the things that are underneath those abilities that make them, those achievements rather, that make them possible. So the logic, the reasoning, the memory, the creativity, the ability to connect ideas, the ability to see details and look at things in a particular way. There's all sorts of different intellectual abilities that underlie that achievement that you might be seeing. It's important to remember that giftedness is not the same thing as high achievement. Giftedness gives us the underlying kind of architecture for that achievement. But high achievement, as you'll know as a teacher, requires some good teaching. So sometimes our gifted learners don't meet their intellectual potential simply because they aren't in the right learning environment that works for their brains. Anyway, another really important aspect about our gifted kids, it's they are not just big brains on sticks. They're full human beings with emotions and feelings, what we can call particular personal qualities. And we can see some of those particular personal qualities in our gifted kids. For instance, a big one is intensity. And we're going to dig into that as we go through Gifted 101 as both a strength and a challenge for our gifted kids. The idea of having intense emotions can be wonderful and can also be deeply challenging. Intensity is one of those qualities. It might be a desire for fairness. It might be seeing that big picture and expecting everyone else to see the world the same way. It might be qualities such as a desire for a strong community. It might be qualities like being able to connect people and connect with people really well. A whole range of different things, but they're quite particular. And whilst they come from those beautiful brains, they are often seen as distinct from an intellectual ability. Okay, question for you to ponder. Thinking about those ideas, giftedness is a brain-based difference, characterized by high intellectual abilities and particular personal qualities. I want you to think of a learner who springs to mind, who you may not have thought of as a gifted learner. You might have thought of as a natural leader, or you might have thought of as your class clown who makes everyone laugh and engages people really well, or that person who remembers every single detail and bugs you by saying, hey, you know what? 3 Thursdays ago at 2 o'clock, you said we were going to be doing XYZ. Why aren't we doing that right now? That exceptional memory. Just have a little search in your own memory banks to think about some of those ideas that you might see playing out in learners. Okay, as I've already said, when you want to find out that little bit more, jump into that conclusion section. Okay, let's do a bit of myth busting together. And this is so important because, oh my goodness, the word gifted it's not a great term, is it? It implies all sorts of other things. In fact, there's a book about gifted kids. It's a parenting book, and the book is called If This Is a Gift, Can I Give It Back? Which is often something some parents can really relate to, that idea. So let's just unpack a little bit about gifted, whatever word you want to call it, what we're not talking about. We're not talking about a child that has been trained or taught to be a high achiever. That's quite different. We're not talking about some kind of elitism or favoritism or, oh, look at those snobby wee rich kids and their violins. We're not talking about elitism. It's not elite to support learners to get what they need from their classroom. Equally so, not all kids are gifted, just like not all kids are deaf, just like not all kids have ADHD. All right, gifted is a distinct category of learners that are recognizable and identifiable, and they're relatively rare. So it's not okay to say everyone is gifted or everyone has a gift. Every child is special and unique and wonderful and precious, obviously, and is a gift to their parents. But not every child has high intellectual abilities, and not every child has these particular personal qualities that are due to those particular brain-based differences. So it's a distinct group of children. Gifted kids are also notoriously not all-rounders. They are not all-round high achievers who stay 9-9 everything all the time. Gifted kids are more often what we call asynchronous. So their development and achievement is absolutely all over the place. They might have really high emotional abilities, EQ, if you like. They might have terrible maths. They might not be able to tie their shoelaces, but they might understand string theory, right? Giftedness is not this lovely, even, all-round development. It's characterized by what people call a spiky profile, things being all over the place, and that's fine. When we think about your average adult is not an all-rounder in everything. They might know heaps about some particular fiddly technical thing they do in their work and not much about cricket. And as adults, we go, oh, that's fine. They're just good at what they do, and maybe they're not good at other stuff, and that's okay. We need to have that's okay thinking for kids too, especially our gifted kids. It's also important to know that our gifted kids need additional support in their education. They will not just be fine because they have these high abilities in these particular qualities. They do need additional support. Okay. Good question for you to unpack, maybe with a team, maybe in a staff meeting. What is it that you have thought or you have heard about giftedness that might actually be a myth or a misconception? And how has it impacted on what you do in your context? Here's an example from my teaching life. I once had a kid in my class who was intensely sociable, gathered people around him like nobody's business. Just like he'd had this network of friendships that was wide and broad and deep and really well connected. He was the leader of our kapa haka group. When he walked into a room, kids turned around and looked at him and listened. There was a hush when he walked in the room. Exceptional social abilities. Yet this child would not put pen to paper, would not write anything down at school. His writing was just, a dog's dinner, technically and creatively. It was awful. So asynchronous, right? I would never have thought of this child as gifted or potentially gifted or neurodivergent in any way when I was a young teacher, because I actually thought gifted kids were precocious readers and writers. And that was a huge misconception in my head. Some are, to be fair, but not all. And I think that's the really important point. Not all of our gifted kids are those very early, very proficient readers and writers. I didn't recognize that those social abilities we're a valid expression of giftedness. So chat that through with the team. What misunderstandings have you had, and what do you think the impact has been of those? Okay. Next section of Gifted 101 is called Gifted and it really is underpinned by this idea that neurodiversity loves company. It's quite rare to find a gifted brain that doesn't have another form of neurodivergence going on. There are all sorts of things our gifted kids can have alongside and along with their giftedness. ADHD, autism, any of the dyslexias, dyslexia, dysgraphia, etc. All of these things can coexist in a gifted brain, which adds additional challenge for that learner and for you as a teacher. One of the things we've got for you as a resource in Gifted 101, and you can also grab an updated version from our website, is our neurodiverse learner characteristics chart. And what this does is lays out a whole lot of different characteristics of neurodivergence without being too specific about labeling or identification or diagnosis. That's not really our zone as teachers. Our zone as teachers is to notice characteristics that we are seeing, work out if in our context some of those characteristics are challenging ones for us, or if they are strengths for a child. And importantly, in that resource, it gives you some ideas of what you might do as a way to respond to some of those characteristics you are seeing. Highly recommended that you dig into that tool and just start thinking about what you are noticing and what kind of things you can do. Okay, next big question. Get listening to your learners. Watch some of the videos in Gifted 101 with them. Work through some of those characteristics with them. Listen to what they are telling you directly and also indirectly. Okay, that is a wind up for us as your introduction to the first module of Gifted 101, a karakia as we finish up. Kia tau, te rangi Māori e, ki runga, i ngā iwi, o te ao. Peace be to everyone in the world. Thank you for joining us for this little insight into Gifted 101. Next time we'll look at Module 2, which is all about strengths and sticking points. Two sides of the same coin very often. Enjoy Gifted 101 and hope to see you next time. Bye-bye.